Welcome to the Fairfield City School District Board of Education meeting for May 5th, 2022. Mrs. Lane, will you call the roll?
Mr. Begley.
Here.
Ms. Birdie.
Present.
Mr. Clark.
Present.
Mrs. Gundrum. Mrs. Shorter. Here.
Will everyone rise and follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I think Mr. Smith, before we get started with our presentations, has an announcement he'd like to make.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Begley. Members of the board, would just like to provide a little bit of background information in regard to the announcement that the district made, about an hour and 15 minutes ago. We announced that all of our schools would be closed tomorrow, Friday, May 6th, due to the fact that President Joe Biden will be in town tomorrow, and in fact, he'll actually be right around the corner there. He plans on visiting a local business. Earlier this week, we did not have any knowledge about that visit, and it may have been 2 days ago when we kind of got wind that might be happening. Anytime the president comes into town, that isn't information, the Secret Service is involved. They do not share all of the details, and in fact, we still don't know all of the details, and there is a reason for that. However, yesterday, we were told that things should be okay for us on Friday. This morning, I believe, is the first time it was announced the exact location of his visit, and as the day progressed, we began to have questions and concerns about the impact on our schools. Specifically, we have the high school here, the freshman school right behind us, Compass is right across the street, and if you go Busway Lane, you have Crossroads, and then 200 yards you have Central Elementary. So we have a lot of students in this general area. So we had some conversations with local law enforcement, and some of the information that we were given, the road closures would include Sims Road, Route 4, Holden Boulevard, North Gilmore Road, Port Union. So if you think about all of those roads, that would have a direct impact on our schools. Not only will they be closed once, they actually will be closed twice. The second road closure would be approximately 4 o'clock, which is about the same time that Compass has dismissal. In addition to those 2 times, other information we were given was that these plans could change at any time with no notice. They may be moved up, they may be moved back, and our dismissal times would not be considered when those times were changed. And so as a result, we would have had a situation where, in terms of Compass Elementary, if that road closes right before dismissal, those students and staff members may have been stuck in that building for several hours. We did have some lengthy discussions. We agonized over this decision for quite some time. We tried to figure out, what can we do to minimize the damage? Could we send some of our schools home on early dismissal, but not others? Should we close certain schools and not others? But in the end, we decided to, we truly thought it was in the best interest of our students and our families to close them all down. It just would have been a nightmare. We tried really hard to think of a way that we could keep at least some of our schools open, or at least bring them in for several hours. But in the end, we just, when they closed the road, that's another thing that we were told, was that once the roads reopened, the traffic jams from people already sitting in the road waiting could be hours long. And then they reopen, really don't get much of a relief for a short period of time, and then they closed them again several hours later. You know, myself, I thought about, or maybe someone else said it to me, they said, you know, if President Biden decides to go to Grader's and get an ice cream, this whole thing would change. And there would be additional closures. It may be closed longer than anticipated. Someone else, a comment that resonated with me, someone else said, well, and this was earlier, if everything goes as it should, you guys will probably be okay. However, this person said, I've never been a part of these where it goes exactly as planned. And so, again, in the end, that's the decision we made. We thought it was in the best interest. We don't want our students stuck in a building for 2 hours on a Friday evening. We don't want that for our parents. There would be limited or no access to our buildings for parents if they needed to come pick up their child unexpectedly. Just a lot of issues that we just felt like we couldn't work through. One of the questions that I had was, well, why are high school students coming in to take the AP test if the buildings are closed? And I'd like to ask Mrs. Aug just to give some brief commentary on that question.
Sure. So AP exams are national exams, and the College Board establishes those AP testing dates early in the year. It's a 2-week window, and they are very strict for test security reasons. They tell you when you can start, what day the exam is, when you start your exam. So the AP U.S. History exam is tomorrow morning, and they have to start between 8 and 9 o'clock. That administration has to begin. And they really do not allow you to alter those dates or times unless there are very extreme circumstances. And typically what they're looking for is something that's known far in advance, you know, that they have one alternative testing date if you submit all of the paperwork to have the test on that other exam day. So it was a very hard decision, but I can say we are very lucky that it's the morning exam. We feel confident that students will be able to come in, take the exam. AP U.S. History exam is probably about 3.5 hours, so they should be finished and able to, you know, get home before the festivities begin. And then I'll just speak from experience because I was an AP U.S. History teacher for many, many years. And, you know, we knew the first week of AP testing, that first Friday, that was our exam. It's circled on the calendar. You're ready to go. Your kids are fired up. You know, they are prepared. If it was me, I would want them to take it tomorrow. I would want them, you know, to sit for that exam because I know that they are prepared and ready to go, and I don't want that, you know, hanging over their heads. So that's really, you know, the reason why we felt like it was necessary to bring them in to test.
Thank you, Ms. Saul. Any questions from any of the board members? And the team members, did I leave anything out? We, like I said, it was an agonizing process. We didn't get together until 3:15. Things really didn't escalate until early this afternoon. And, but, you know, feel free. I don't know if I left anything else out, but we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have as well.
I think it's the right call. Yeah. That was tough, but I think it's the right call. And I'm glad you're holding the AP tomorrow. I think it'll be done and out before noon, and it'll all be good. So I think it's the right call.
There's no busing involved in that.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, on behalf of the board, Superintendent Smith, the administration, we appreciate the hardship that this causes such late notice, but I think in the end, it's in a situation that we can't control. It's certainly the lesser of two evils. And really where it's at, it's going to cut off the city from the township, and I don't want to put any of our students in that kind of a situation. I think it's the right call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to presentations, resolutions. Mr. Smith, would you introduce the Equity Leadership Team student recognition?
Yeah, absolutely. We have 3 presentations scheduled this evening. Our first, as you mentioned, does involve some student recognition. And at this time, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Gentry Fletcher and Mrs. Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening to all of you. We're so happy to be here. It really, truly is difficult to put into words the value of student voice. Our students in this district tell us what they need. Students tell us about their experiences, both the good and the bad. They also hold us accountable. We've learned more about the student experience from these two students' perspectives. As student members of the Fairfield City School District Equity Leadership Team, Kennedy Baker and Annie Udosin have done all of the above for us. They have provided our committee with insight, the things that we do right, and the areas where we need to improve, and we appreciate them so much for that. These two students are wise beyond their years. They are givers, they are doers, and really and truly, they are difference makers, and they're dedicated to their respective causes, but united in their love for Fairfield. We will so miss their input on the ELT, but we know it's time for them to go and share that same passion, compassion, and dedication with the rest of the world. Girls, we wish you nothing but the best, and we would love to honor you with a small token of our appreciation. Please come up.
This is just a little something to thank you guys for all your hard work on our committee. It's been a pleasure just getting to know you, learning from you, and we just wish you nothing but the best in the future. We're going to really miss you. Yes. Yes.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I'm going to put this down. This is a huge gift. Thank you all. Well, once again, thank you all for all of your support, especially with ELT and everything, and always being open to listening to student voices and so forth. This is, I was going to say, about my second, third year on ELT, and it has been a great opportunity. It's been great being able to speak to everyone and learn about the new opportunities within the district. So just once again, thank you all for your support.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, just to build off what Kennedy said, thank you all so much for this honor. It means so much to know that the district cares about student voices and wants to amplify what the student body is feeling in ways that they feel like they can leave their mark. And I'll definitely be taking all these lessons that I learned from the equity leadership team with me through my college years and even beyond. So thank you all so much.
Any board comments?
Yes, congratulations to the girls for all your hard work. They're absolutely fantastic young ladies. Absolutely fantastic young ladies. They're achieving so much, and there's so much to come. Very proud of you. We're going to miss you. Stay in touch. Stay in touch. Come back. There may be some opportunities in case there's some kind of panel for successful collegiates. So thank you so much for recognizing their hard work and their invaluable contributions.
Yeah, Candy, Annie, it's great to see you two, how much you've succeeded in the last couple years, and it seems like everywhere you look, you guys are there, and and that's good. And like Lena said, I hope you come back, whether it's committee visiting and mentoring other students here at your alma mater, but wherever you go, I know you're going to have be a huge benefit to that journey wherever it is. So thank you for all your leadership and what you've done. Very proud of you.
I was going to say something similar. I've been to quite a few events just recently since being elected, and I feel like you're at every one of them I go to. Congratulations, girls. You guys are going to achieve even more and more, and I'm just super proud to have you guys part of our district.
Thank you. Yeah, the equity leadership team is something we have to do as a district. It's not something that you had to do, so we really appreciate your participation, and as they've said, it's been invaluable. Thank you. All right, our next president, yeah, give him another hand. Our next presentation, ESSER Funds, Mrs. Lane.
Thank you. Mr. Begley, members of the board, tonight we thank you for allowing Mrs. Aug, Ms. Gilbert, and I to present an update of our elementary and secondary school emergency relief, or let's just say ESSER funds, as well as an update on our American Rescue Plan, or ARP funding. So as you might recall from earlier presentations, this funding is intended to help states and school districts safely reopen schools, measure and effectively address significant learning loss, and take other actions to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the students and families who depend on our K-12 schools. Allocations are subject to change over the period of availability and duration of these grants, and all these grants must be tracked separately, and mandatory reporting of each of these grants is also required. Our first grant was the SR1 Grant, which was a little over $1.1 million. That grant must be spent by September 30th of 2022. And part of that grant, there's a piece that the non-public schools in our area receives. As of right now, the district has used all of our funds on student and staff computers. So we have spent all of our SR1 money. Presently, the non-public schools still have about $4,800 to spend by that September deadline. Our second ESSER fund was about $4.8 million, and that must be spent by September 30th of 2023. And as you see, there's a long list. This is not a complete list of everything that we are using the monies for, but over 50% of this funding went to our technology plan, our one-to-one program. So it's approximately $2.6 million was allocated for the purchase of those student and staff computers. We're also using these funds for those Catalyst counseling social workers that you may have seen the presentation here a few months ago. And Mrs. Aug will cover some other expenditures that are listed up there.
Thank you, Mrs. Lane. You might remember that it was around this time last year, it was actually about April, when we had to submit a plan to ODE on learning loss and a recovery plan. And several of the things on the list here were part of that plan, and I'm proud to say that they came to fruition because at the time we weren't necessarily sure how it would play out. So just a couple of things that I will highlight. Of course, the ACT prep with Torch Prep has been a really big program for us this year, and having those ESSER monies available to support the professional learning, as well as the opportunities for students in the boot camps that Torch Prep ran, they were imperative, and we're looking forward to seeing whether or not those efforts paid off when we get those results back. I'd also like to highlight summer school. We ran an expanded summer school program last year for our kindergarten through fifth graders that also included transportation for the first time. And we will be also having free summer school this year, along with transportation like we did. We made some modifications. There was some learning last year. It was our first time running a full-day program, and so we've made some modifications, like I said, but we will have free summer school again this year, along with the same transportation that we had last year, where they're picked up at their home schools and transported to Central. I'd also like to highlight the after-school tutoring, especially at Creekside and Crossroads. They took advantage of their ESSER funds to hold some test prep sessions leading up to OSTs, and they were very strategic with how they used that. They identified students using data. They invited those students to the program and then served them specifically to meet their needs based on their data. And then finally, Mrs. Lane talked about spending so much money on devices. And so one of the things we felt was necessary was to provide some support for our elementary teachers and students, which, because the one-to-one plan was accelerated, we hadn't really talked about that. And so we were able to contract with Hamilton County ESC, and we have 3 coaches who serve our buildings part-time, helping to support our teachers, our students, and our administrators in their learning with all of these new devices in the buildings, and they have been a hit. Some of the buildings that have presented this year have mentioned, some of the impact that they've had on staff and students, so that's been a very positive. I think we've spent our money in a very positive way with them, so.
Moving on to the ARPesser, this is the largest grant we received, and it's approximately $10.8 million. This grant must be spent by September 30th of 2024. And again, we are planning to spend approximately $4.8 million for technology purchases with this grant. We also are planning to continue the support of those social workers for the 22-23 school year. And I will turn it back over to Mrs. Ogg to explain a couple more items.
I didn't know if I should just combine it all together or wait, so one piece of our plan you might remember from last year, because we had some discussion about it, were the academic support tutors that we hired for each building. So again, I think we've been pleasantly surprised. This was something that was kind of an unknown. We allowed each building to hire their own academic support tutors and then use them in the way that they felt best served their students. And so Mr. Martin and Mr. Smith and I, as we have visited buildings this year and listened to different building plans, are hearing the different ways in which the tutors are being used to serve the students in the buildings. And we've seen some data that would support that they are having an impact to help close the learning gap for our students. So we're happy about that. One of the things that was not in our plan last year, but that we are very excited about, are Hamilton County ESC literacy coaches. We adopted a new reading program this year for our elementary schools, so K through 5. It's called Fontes and Pinnell Classroom. And it's a very different way of teaching reading. There's a lot of literature, there's a lot of grouping and guided reading and all of these things. And so as we were talking about implementation, we felt like this was a way that we could use our money to support our teachers in making this shift in their classrooms. And so we just feel very lucky to have these women here helping us with the implementation.
Thank you. The next grant is called the ARP Idea Grant, and this is about $517,000. Again, must be spent by September 30th of 2023. And a portion of that total amount, again, is set aside for some non-public schools in our area. And Ms. Gilbert will speak to the use of those funds.
Good evening. This money has come in to be very beneficial for us. As you might remember, back in the fall, we did an audit. And one of the things that really showed up was that we do not have a reliable progress monitoring tool that our intervention specialists can use to help close the achievement gap and to work on IEPs and the goals and objectives. So that is one way that we're spending our money, is with a program called IXL. We have also been able to update our audiology equipment for our students with hearing loss. This has become very critical to our students. If they can't hear, they can't access the curriculum. So some of our equipment was really old, so we've been able to utilize these funds to get better equipment for our students. We are also using it, we are contracting with Butler County ESC for an audiologist that can come in and actually let us know what equipment a student really needs. We've never had this service before, and we will continue this service next year as well. We are also able to hire a school psychologist that will help out with the evaluation system. And Due to our increased numbers in our units, our multiple disabilities and social communication, we are starting a new unit at Mrs. Hayes' building next year, and we will be able to pay for that salary and benefits through this funding.
Thank you. I will ask Ms. Gilbert to cover the next grant, which is an early childhood special education grant for about $38,000. Again, must be spent by September 30th of 2023.
We have been able to hire 2 additional preschool teachers at West Elementary to help cover our students with IEPs. And this will only help better prepare our preschoolers going into kindergarten to close those achievement gaps earlier rather than later. So that is how we are using those funds, is for salaries and benefits.
Thank you. Our last grant we've received is called ARP Homeless, and it's about $52,800. Have a little bit longer period to spend this one through September 30th of 2024. And actually, Mr. Crapo's department handles this. Our homeless liaison uses this money for our students and families that are homeless. So far, we've just received the money starting in January of this year, so not much of it has been spent yet, but it is going to come in handy, I'm sure, because we do have a population of homeless students. So what happens when the grant funds run out? If the general fund can't support these positions or programs, they will end after the years indicated there. But we will evaluate each of those programs or services and see if we can find alternative funding if we do identify ones that feel we need to continue. So that's a goal of ours. We also have heard bits and pieces of maybe there might be some more funding that comes through with some of these grants. So that would really help extend some of these programs for future years if possible. We will welcome any questions you have.
Sure. Questions, comments from the board?
I have a question. The audiologists, are they coming in and examining the kids personally, like for kids who aren't able to normally make it out to an audiologist, or is it just for what equipment Fairfield can provide to students?
They actually work, the individual works with the student and also the IEP and ETR team to determine needs so that we can better meet those needs within the school environment.
A question. It pertains to the number of students that we have coming in with IEPs that are serviced through these funds that are considered nonverbal. And is it possible that in the future we may be able to get some help from the Kelly O'Leary Center? I mean, is that something that is possibly in the future, and is that considered to be an applicable use of funds, depending on the number of nonverbals?
They could possibly help us out. We are part of an assistive technology consortium through Hamilton County ESC, which also helps us with that population that we have a contract with. They help us figure out what type of iPad or communication device is actually needed by the student and what software is needed. So another way we have been spending our money is we have been buying a program called Touch Chat, which many of our nonverbal students actually use, and it is their voice. That is the best way to describe that. So we are doing different things with assistive technology, but nobody is off the table for me.
And I was just wondering about not only the technology piece, but some of their social skills groups and things like that, which would be a huge benefit for those kids that are struggling with communication.
Right.
Just wondering if that was something in the pipeline. But I appreciate that ESC is providing assistive technology. I know that's pretty important.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Scott?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple thoughts. One, the district had planned to start one-to-one technology before COVID hit, but this was fortuitous timing in that we were able to finance much of it through this, and of course, it was needed immediately in our remote environment. Two, achievement gaps existed long before COVID as well, and only worsened during this time period. So what I read is we're looking at a 5-year recovery time frame. So this is money, when someone sees this and says, this is money they can spend all the way to 2024, that's great, but even that may not be enough to recover to where we need to be with our youngest students. So it's all needed. I know it's a lot of money, but it's all needed. It's all being used appropriately, and that's really one of the reasons we're having this report tonight, so that the public can see that this money is being spent appropriately. Mrs. Lane, thank you for managing it, not only for our district, but for other districts. You made that point, and I think it's a point worth making, right? That we have to help manage these funds for other districts.
Non-public schools.
No, non-public schools.
I will have a comment, Mr. President.
Sure, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks for doing that management, Ms. Lane, appreciate that. And just thinking through some of the schools I visited recently, I've seen the technology in place, and I've heard the voices through the technology. I've seen them use that in the art class, the tablets, it just helps them. So it is being used properly, appropriately, and it's really good to see it in action. And then Mr. Begley mentioned in 2024 on the tutors, walked in and saw the tutors sitting there with the students. It's awesome. And I think one thing we need to think about, obviously, is if that doesn't come again in 2024, what will we do to pull those tutors out? This technology will last a little while longer, but to pull those tutors out, which we talked about before this was in place, but now that it's such a part of the life of the kids, part of the life of the school, what will we do after that's gone if we don't have the blessing of those grants? So maybe not today, obviously, but I think it's something we really need to talk about and project and see where it might come from and how we would navigate through that, because it definitely helps the kids, the students.
I'll just mention, next board meeting, you'll have a presentation on the 5-year forecast. So
Oh, good.
that may help in that discussion. I also just want to mention, too, I want to thank Mrs. Aug and Ms. Gilbert, because they definitely help manage the money, too. So
Thank you both.
Yes,
good
yes.
team members.
Absolutely. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I just, Mr. Clark brought it up, and I was planning on bringing it up if someone didn't. I mean, I think that's a very important slide, what happens when grant funds run out. And if you walk around our buildings, and some of you have, and you've seen these things at work, I mean, I just know from all of my visits, I walk in and I know where all of the tutors are working in small groups, and I see them every single time. And those are going to be some hard discussions because we know the value. We've seen it. Mrs. Aug referred to, data to support it. You can feel it, when you see it, when you experience it, you can see what's happening. But we've already had some conversations across the district because people know these deadlines are out there. And hey, what are we going to do? We can't give this up, and that's. And there are people that have strong feelings, the ones who are a part of this and who see it every day, the value, the benefit with our kids. We are going to have those conversations eventually. And that's why it's good for the board to hear this now and see the forecast at the next meeting. We're very thankful, very blessed to have the services that we have and these funds, and I think they've changed the lives of our students, but we will, they're not, as of right now, the funds are not there forever, so that will lead to some difficult conversations when the time comes.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, let's move on to student extracurricular opportunities. Mr. Crapo?
All right, well, good evening, members of the board. Thank you for having me and us here eventually here today. I'm pleased to be able to present information to you that directly affects our students' experience here at FCSD. We often talk about meeting the needs of the whole child and create an environment where everyone has a chance to be successful. With that, we not only get extremely creative in our curriculum offerings, making sure each student has an experience that they can build upon and set them up for future success. We also offer a wide range of emotional supports throughout the district and continue to grow that department. Finally, we present an extensive list and an ever-growing list, and that's an important piece, of extracurricular opportunities that directly link our students, their strengths, passions, interests, and culture ambitions. So to start out, what is an extracurricular activity? To simply put it, extracurricular activities are programs that are not typically part of the regular school curriculum and that are structured around an activity, a goal, or a purpose. Typically, the activities include sports, student government, community service, employment opportunities, the arts, hobbies, and educational clubs. In addition to all the positive effects an extracurricular activity can have on a student's experience, they often complement the academic curriculum in some way. Some of the many benefits that an extracurricular activity can have on a student is their ability to build connections and relationships. These are potential lifelong connections. The students also build self-esteem and engage in social activities. Since students choose what they want to belong to, the skills gained from the experience often lead to a career, essential life skills, and a lifelong interest. Other key skills that are often pulled from the environment are teamwork, leadership, problem-solving skills, communication, coordination, time management, and creativity. And to circle back on the idea that we work with the whole child, there are numerous studies that show the direct link between extracurricular activities, reading and math achievement scores, course grades, and sense of belonging. I was able to reach out to college admissions office at UC and ask a few questions about the importance and weight of an extracurricular activity when a student's applying for college. Just a second. I wanted to get them on Zoom and record that Zoom, but they said it was pretty busy this time of the year, so. I was able to get a few quotes from them. Activities are very important. It's not how many activities you do, but what you do with the activity that you're involved in. They are looking for leadership responsibilities and time management. It looks good when a student has outside activities, such as working 20 hours a week and involved in school activities as well. But one of the biggest ones that we talked about over and over, she kept mentioning, was it's not the number of activities that a child or a student belong to. It's what you do in that activity. Are you a leader? What role do you play in that activity, and how far do you take that, the initiative in that activity that will have more weight than showing up with 20 or 30 different activities and just a participant within those. So I thought that was interesting. She kept going back to that, so I had a lot of questions. I was trying to take a lot of quotes, but the biggest takeaway for me was it wasn't the number. It's not the bullet points on the resume. It was simply, what leadership roles did you play in that? And how can this transfer over to the university? So what's the process? So many different buildings and so forth. I'm going to focus on the high school here, but the high school. First, if a student wants to present an activity to the high school, they're going to bring the activity to the grade level administrator. The student's then invited to the weekly administrator meeting where they're asked to talk through their ideas and details. The student will then need to identify an adult to lead that group,
currently it's Mr. Sanders, but Mr. Sanders will then record the activity, and then the student can start to promote the activity. And the event's usually recorded. It goes on the website in a form and documents. And after 1 year, that adult may apply for this to be an approved extracurricular activity and receive payment for their time. So I think it was important to note through this process of learning about our extracurricular activities, there's a process in place. Students are encouraged to come in and share their ideas. They're involved in the process. I can imagine as a 10th, 11th, 12th grader to be invited to the administration team meeting. It might be a little intimidating, but it would be great to be able to share their wealth of knowledge and their interest, and then be able to go out and pick a leader, and that leader be able to take them and move forward. So currently, and like I said, a lot of this changes often, but currently we have over 230 adults that are working on and for approved extracurricular activities. So that's not all just staff members, because you can be a coach and be outside, but we have over 230 adults involved in this process. So to start out in elementary, because I kind of wanted to showcase what we do in elementary, what we do in middle school, and then what we do in the secondary level. And again, I just wanted to stress that at the moment when I was able to gather this information from the building principals, this is what was going on. At any point, they could have a meeting and throw another extracurricular activity involved. But with 6 different elementary buildings, there are many different options for students to become engaged in an activity that outside of the classroom. One of the overall theme I noticed when speaking with administration was the term new. This tells me that the administration and staff are always willing to listen and try something if it means that the students have a choice to grow or a chance to grow in some way. As far as a list of activities that go on in our elementary building, student council, student government, choir, karate, pottery, art classes, art club, dance, drama club, big brothers, big sisters, young musicians, an ensemble, intramural sports, basketball, soccer, and hopefully in the future volleyball and football, chess club, safety patrol, STEM club. And again, this just keeps going. But the idea is that if you have an interest and want to belong to something, even at an elementary level, there's options out there. I think of when I was in elementary, and I cannot list most of those. So, middle school, you get a little wider range of extracurricular activities for the student body. As students age, they find their way, their interest, and then continue to expand. The activities that they participate in help shape the outlook in not only school, but lifelong bonds and skills. So currently in our 6th and 8th grade schools, they have access to football, cheerleading, volleyball, cross country, tennis, golf, basketball, wrestling, swimming, diving, track, and intramurals, including cheerleading, basketball, track, bowling, soccer, swimming, select band, jazz band, select choir, select orchestra, Rhythm Express, Student Council, Hope Squad, Yearbook, Youth Coalition, National Junior Honor Society, Lego Robotics, Drama, Chess Club, Care Club, Anime Club, and Video Game Development Club. And again, I can only imagine managing all these options. You have 1,400 kids in each building, and just the idea that if you have an interest that's not on here, there's a process to get that going too. For secondary, I promise you I am not going to list them all. But I will say, there's a 28-page document on the website. You go to fairfieldcityschools.com, schools, senior high school, and then there's an activity guide. And that's what Mr. Sanders is updating, but that's 28 pages. There's 12 activities in the arts, 3 activities in Butler Tech, 4 different language activities, 33 different student leaderships, groups and clubs, and then athletics, which is big on its own. So because athletics is so big, I had brought Mr. Aaron Blankenship to come speak to that.
Members of the board, thank you for your time again this evening. Mr. Crapo, thank you for inviting me. obviously, as Mr. Crapo was alluding to, we want to provide as many opportunities for all of our students as possible. And so I thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about athletics, but also members of the board and district office team. Thank you for your support. I've mentioned it often, but it's great to see you at the different events, and it means so much to our coaches, our student athletes, and our community that you're there. But I wanted to give just the briefest update possible about our athletics. All of these, I felt like the best thing to do was to give you real numbers from this current school year. So during this current school year, we have over 1,100 student athletes, so over 1,100 students that are participating in at least one sport. We have 268 that are competing in at least two sports. So we have multi-sport athletes. That number is getting smaller and smaller as the years go by, just due to competition and the demands off-season from different sports. But it's a current charge amongst our athletic department to really make this work for our student athletes that want to participate in multiple sports. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to give them that opportunity. And so when we did the research over the past couple weeks to see that number, we were excited to see that number go up from recent years. Total of 99 total school-sponsored teams, including middle school. And so it's a constant push for us to have the right coaches in place. And we've been blessed so far to have a lot of teachers that currently coach. And when we don't have teachers, a lot of members of our community that are great role models for our student athletes. The bottom statistic there, I think that was a huge concern of mine. We mentioned COVID earlier in the board meeting. When we had restrictions over the past couple of years, what would the turnout be when the gates were opened again? Would people come back to our facilities? And so far this year, we've welcomed over 44,000 visitors to our facilities to see our games. And so that's a great thing, obviously, for our student athletes, obviously for us, for them to see our venues. But more importantly, a lot of our bigger crowds, it's more than just the student athletes. There are a lot of other clubs and extracurriculars that are included in that. So on a Friday night football game, it's the marching band, it's the color guard, it's the orchestra that performs the national anthem, our choraleers who will sing the national anthem at basketball games. And so it becomes a great evening that's more than sports. And so that's a great statistic there. We take a lot of pride in that. But we live in a great town, and again, that number shows that. So two things to mention that did not make the slide. Two of the newest changes for next year, OSHA has approved two new sports that will be state sanctioned. One is boys volleyball. We've had a boys volleyball team for some time here, but it's really been a club team that's worked through our athletic department, through the GMC. Starting next year, they'll have the opportunity to win a true state championship, to participate in the state tournament, just like every other sport we have. Our newest sport, we'll talk a little bit about this evening, girls wrestling. So it's one of the fastest growing sports in all of Ohio. It became sanctioned as well. So next season, we will have our first girls wrestling sanctioned team. They'll have an opportunity to compete at the state level. And we have a special individual here to talk about her experience. Senior Rachel Elizondo is a huge part of why we have a girls wrestling team right now. She placed third the past 2 years in the state tournament that was run through the Coaches Association. And so it looks like it has a bright future. We have Rachel and the other girls on the team to thank for that. But we want to give Rachel just a moment to talk about her experiences with girls wrestling.
Hi. I just wanted to thank you guys for this opportunity to let me come tonight and speak. It's hard for me to squeeze 8 years of wrestling into 2 minutes, but I'll let you know that it wasn't always easy. As a female, I had to work twice as hard as the boys did to prove to them and the coaches that I belonged in the wrestling room. At a young age, I experienced discrimination from my peers and also adults. From being the only female in a gymnasium full of boys to wrestling in girls' districts and state. But I realize now that all of those things happened for a reason. Fortunately, my senior year, I had Coach Pringle, Schmidt, and Meyer volunteer their time to get a program off the ground and provide a great opportunity for myself and for the girls who have decided to try a sport that I have grown to love so much. All of the trials and tribulations happened so that myself and the other Ohio girls wrestlers can make history happen and finally have the opportunity to compete as a station sport. Sorry, I'm a bit nervous. It is my hopes that Fairfield will embrace their female wrestlers and hopes to continue growing Fairfield's girls wrestling team. I'm currently committed to Indiana University East to play collegiate soccer, but I am looking forward to coming back to Fairfield next year to see how far the girls wrestling program has grown.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right, to wrap up the extracurricular part, I just wanted to stress that it's another piece to the whole child that we put a lot of emphasis on. We look at the curriculum, we look at the mental health, we look at what's going on inside the classroom and out of the classroom and how we can develop these well-rounded students to become adults in the community and hopefully come back and help serve. So with that, offer any questions.
Questions, comments?
I'm just really grateful to hear about what's going on, as far as expanding extracurricular activities and just sort of having a blueprint for that that's a little bit more explanatory. I do believe it's important to have extracurricular activities that you are fully developed in, that you are actually progressing in, taking some leadership action. So thank you for pointing that out. I think that's something that students need to hear more of. I appreciate that. And Rachel, oh my goodness, thank you so much for being a pioneer in a sport that's not typically out there for young ladies. So that takes a lot of bravery and courage. And I am very impressed with that. Thank you so much, Mr. Blankenship, for everything that you've done, Mr. Crapo. These are great opportunities for our kids. It leads to excellence for life and preparation.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to also thank you guys for the presentation. It's really good to see our kids being active in our school district outside of academics. I feel that's very important as somebody who was very involved in academics and extracurriculars. And I love that we have a process for kids to get their own activities out there, to get their own club started. That way we can provide a complete list for anybody for any activity or stuff, because some of those weren't available 10 years ago. And I really appreciate that we continue to actively engage all students. And Rachel, gosh, you're amazing. And congratulations for everything you've achieved over the last couple of years and helping us provide that program and really skyrocket women's wrestling. So thank you.
Rachel, congratulations. You placed third, is what I heard, right? That's fantastic. Very proud of you. You're a catalyst in what you're doing, and to say you'll come back and check on the program, that shows even more leadership than your passion for what you're doing. So it's I'm excited for all the women's sports. Softball is becoming more prevalent on television and on normal regular cable channels, national channels, and wrestling. I think I even saw your picture on social media a couple times. So again, congratulations for that. And then the extracurricular is just so important, like they already said. And I think it's important what you pointed out, Mr. Crapo, with not the number of bullet points you have, but your involvement with those bullet points, because I think students here, the more the better. But you can stretch yourself so thin that you're not really benefiting what you're doing. It's just checking a box. So getting involved, being a leader, and leading others in that way is huge. And I think students hear that, they're less likely to think, oh, I got to do this, and this, and I can focus on one or two things and do those very, very well, which carries a lot of weight in college and in business. So, and Mr. Blankenship, thank you for everything that you do for our sports arena. Man, it's amazing. To see these numbers up there, that's incredible. I know when you get into high school, a lot of times the students focus more on one sport, and that double sport kind of narrows down a little bit, so they focus on that. But I'm encouraged with what we've come out of and to where we have 44,000 people that have come as spectators to see our students play and be involved with that. That's huge. We have a great community, and I'm thankful for both of you and so proud of you, Rachel. Good job.
Thank you. Rachel, it's not hyperbole to say you're a trailblazer, right? And to take ownership of the program, not only while you're here, but as you leave, is a great thing, and we hope to honor you by continuing to grow it. It fits right in with what Mr. Crapel and others have commented on, and it's not just about taking a seat in an extracurricular, but about engaging and growing through the process. I also want to reference Mr. Blankenship. I think this is a great time to say that you're doing wonderful things with the athletic program, and it's more than just about winning. We're having success in all sorts of different sports, but the true purpose for all extracurriculars is personal growth, right? Building character, building sportsmanship, and you're doing it the right way in our athletic program, and I appreciate that. I want to commend you for that. Thank you.
I had one more thing to Miss Rachel. I'm sure it was very tough. You said 6 or 8 years you've been wrestling, is that correct? Yeah. I'm sure it was very, very tough to do that in a male-dominant sport, so kudos to you for being strong. And I'm sure it was hurtful at some times too, but there's a lot of happiness and pride that's come out of that, so good for you. Good for you. You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Rachel.